So we're back to basketball. Let's talk about some basketball. Obviously, yesterday I made a video about the Super Bowl. I thought it was a big enough event, and it was a video which did well, you know. But I do want to go back to talking about basketball, what it is, and what it's going on in the basketball scene. Firstly, before I say anything, I do want to say that thank you for the support in yesterday's video. It was honestly me just experimenting something. I had never done a video about another sport that was not basketball. So being able to do that and knowing that that's a possibility is something that feels pretty good to know because, that means that eventually if I do, let's say, get further into football or start becoming, wider with the range of sports, maybe we could become much more than just basketball. And I appreciate that that's actually an opportunity that I get to, have and exercise. So thank you. But apart from that, obviously, let's talk about basketball. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Stephen Curry. The three juggernauts of the league right now. The three guys which you want to see at the top, I want to see. They're great players. They're playing great. And what is it with these guys that they're leaving soon? And who is the next generation? Honestly, I can't stop thinking about football. Right, just because I saw that Super Bowl and that performance by Patrick Mahomes really had me starstruck, if I'm being 100% honest. When I saw him, completely just take over that game and be able to be the greatest player on the planet for that game and put the team on his back and win, I started thinking about the greatest players in NBA history and what they are and what they look like in their prime and what they are doing, especially with how they look. We saw it in with Curry, Durant, obviously LeBron, and we've seen those guys, those types of just performances where you're like, how are they gonna do this? And then they end up doing it. So today, who's gonna be winning the championships in the NBA when these guys retire? Because look, as much as us NBA fans are blessed to have superstars which have lasted a lot of years in the league and have been able to give us, numerous seasons of performances, let's face it, it's coming to an end. The more that I look at like LeBron and the way that he's slowing down, which is very obvious, the way that I look at a guy like, maybe you could say a guy like Steph, even though he's playing great, but you could see that he's definitely not in the same level that he once was in terms of, the body. And when you see especially some of the older guys which are now retiring, like Hassan Whiteside retired today, you could tell that there is another era of NBA basketball which is coming up and it's coming strong. This era obviously has more to do with shooting, with guards. We've seen guys like SGA really be able to make something out of nothing. And I just want to say, like, in the playoffs, who are going to be the players who are going to be carrying the Larry O'Brien and really putting the team right on their back like we've seen them do? The first player I want to talk about is obviously Nikola Jokic. He is the best player in the NBA, and that's a fact. When it comes to the things that he has done, obviously he won last year's championship, and the way that he did it was just phenomenal. We all know that he has just been on a tear recently, and his ability to just consistently be able to go and go and go and go and be able to carry his team through the games, right, has been absolutely phenomenal. And I do believe that with his abilities, he has done more than a lot of the players that in NBA history have been able to do. He reminds me of like a Larry Bird type of player, a guy who was not really expected to be that great, but then they are, and it just makes them that much better. So when we look at a guy, like Nikola Jokic, I think he's going to be one of the players which in the future gets to be one of those faces of the league type of players, right? So then who else, right? Who else are we looking at to carry on these torches? Firstly, obviously, we have to include a guy like Luka. We have to include a guy like Giannis. These are guys which are in the same age range as, the guys over there, but they're really good, and they've proven, especially time and time again, and they've testified themselves as league superstars, which is something that has a lot to do. And then I feel like that there's another tier of players under them which have shown signs of being able to get to that caliber, but have not yet achieved the level of those guys. I do think that this row of players is subject to change, and these are guys who could one year win a championship. They can make a run, even though in the NBA it's way more difficult to make a run of that caliber. But I do think that with the NBA growing and with how the league is expanding, these guys could be up there. These guys are Shea, Luka, Booker, Anthony Edwards, not Luke, I'm sorry, Shea, Book, Anthony Edwards, and some of the guys out east like Tyrese Halliburton and Trae Young. But apart from those players, right, who, in my opinion, is going to actually make a good go case next? Who's going to be the player? Are we seeing him right now? And I do believe that the next player to be the addition to the top 10 players of all time is probably going to be Jokic. Even though I do believe that Giannis has a much better resume than him. They have the same amount of MVPs. Giannis has a Defensive Player of the Year, multiple defensive teams, more longevity awards, and has the same amount of championships and finals MVPs. I do believe that there is something to be said about what the players have done this season and what Jokic did last season. I think that the Nuggets in that Western Conference, which has been extremely scary and extremely, dangerous when it comes to how many games you're winning, I feel like them keeping their record alive and still being one of the top teams in the league is something that is not appreciated enough, especially from the fans. So when we look at these things, right, and we look at what makes these players great, what we have to look at, right, is like, okay, so what do we know? Do we know that they can be clutch? Well, yes, for Jokic, he did it for the playoffs last season, right? And finally, right, and from what I've analyzed, I do think that the next best player in the league is going to be, and after some analyzation, I do believe that the next player to, really hold that crown in the league is probably going to be Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. I don't see any other player, not named probably Victor Wembanyama, but we haven't proven if he can win and he can really carry a team. But I do think that those are the two guys who are going to have the most success throughout the years. I think that Luka may not win as much as Jokic. I think that he's going to win much less. And I do think that Giannis is probably going to maybe win one more ring. But with the way that he conducts himself and the way that he likes to play, it doesn't matter what superstar you put around him. If it's not LeBron James, he's probably going to still have some issues because he is not a leader and he's just a crybaby. And that does not translate to the playoffs. So in my opinion, if it comes down to just today, I do think the two best players in terms of playoff dominance and just the way that they're gonna, take over the league. I do believe that we can say that it's gonna be Jokic and Luka.